One. Hi there, I am Danica Joan, and I'm here leading the Custody Matters Monday night live video. My request of you is to just bring your questions on. We are sort of taking this as needed as far as the group's demands are. And one of the things that kind of came to me, what I was doing today was a day of working with, going through my curriculum that I wrote a couple of years ago, and just kind of like just reworking it, trying to find out pull out the important stuff, and also to kind of to figure out what was the most necessary stuff. Now, when I completed the curriculum, that was before I became a family mediator, and that's been an interesting journey. So, becoming a family mediator has been an interesting journey in working with parents, like directly the both sides, because typically I will coach one side or the other in trying to help them along their journey to completion as far as harmonious divorce and so forth. But being a family mediator, I get to kind of peek in on both sides and see what their thought processes are and so forth. Just so you know, a little background. There are three categories of individuals who are eligible to be family mediators in the state of Florida. One is mental health. Anyone who with a social work or counseling kind of background, they can apply to be a family mediator. A lawyer, and also an educator. And I, being the educator, that's where I came from. And it's quite interesting, because when you're choosing your mediator, and just so you know, when you're going through a divorce or custody situation, you get to choose all of these people work for you. So the lawyer works for you, and even in many respects, the judge, everybody that's in the court is there to help you in your situation, to bring it to conclusion. Now, as a family mediator, coming from an education background, I found that it was the best of all worlds for me, because a lot of times a lawyer will come and typically just the way the mindset is to bring all the garbage from the past and deal with it and to figure out what's going on, and and a lot of times we have a tendency to do that which our profession has trained us to do. So if you are a trained lawyer, you're going to do a lot of lawyering. You're going to bring a lot of the past into that space. Now, the mental health or counseling background, a lot of times we have you have a tendency to want to counsel and diagnose and stuff like that. But in the mediation realm, my approach is to try to find some common ground, something that we can agree upon, because actually that's kind of the concept of mediation. Mediation is to say, okay, we don't agree with each other. In fact, we can't stand each other, but the mediator can go into one room, and then they can go into the other room and see, there is something that they can agree upon, and to just be the neutral third party. In a way, it's kind of great, because you don't really I have no dog in the fight, so to speak. So when you have a lawyer, or somebody that's representing you, a lot of times you're very concerned about what is the lawyer doing? Are they stringing it out to try to make more money off of me, or are they actually standing for my rights? And then sometimes in well-meaning professionals, they are trying to stand up for the rights of their client, but in some ways, I've actually seen it where I've been a family mediator in a mediation situation, and both parties are represented, and one party has a lawyer that's all about, this other person is, this is no good. I mean, they really kind of see the worst in their the other client, so to speak. And then so they're actually stirring the pot and making it worse. And then I've also seen it where, you know, where lawyers are like, listen, you know, it would serve the both of them well if they can actually communicate. So I've seen all of it around, but I'll tell you, mediation is where all of the courts are going to, whether it's family court or any of the courts. Everything is going towards try to get to mediation first. And I highly and in mediation, a lot of times there might be a few things that you do agree upon, and then there's some things that are just complete impasse, and that's okay. Something got accomplished during mediation, and you can go to the judge, and then you can, and at least you have some sort of something to build upon from there. Now, usually two co-parents, two people who are going through divorce, they are ordered to go to the mediation, but that's all they are. As long as they show up, they've met the legal requirements. From that point on, it's their choice. It's their choice to walk out. It's their choice to stay. So for every minute that they stay, they're being, they're trying to be part of the solution. So, and I totally get that a lot of times, and especially the people who are part of these groups, like Custody Matters, and then My Kids Need Both group and everything, a lot of times you're at your wit's end. Maybe you haven't seen your child in quite some time, and there is no hope for you. And what I'm saying is just, I guess my point being is you wouldn't be part of this group if everything was harmonious, and I get it. And there are situations where the other party is completely unreasonable, unworkable, and just abusive and in different forms and so forth and so on. So I get it. I get and maybe if if you have any personal concerns that you don't feel like that need to be broadcast on this group, please, I encourage you to private message me, and then we can have a conversation. I know that there's just a lot of people that are just at their wits' end, and they think that, I know especially with like men or people who've never been married that are going through custody situations where mom has, they've never married, so mom typically would have primary custody or sole custody or whatever custody, and then dad doesn't feel like that they have any hope of equity. But I'm here to tell you that it is just not the case anymore. Not that it wasn't. There was a time that the custody was kind of, when people no longer lived in an intact home in the situation, or maybe never have lived there, the courts decided that, okay, fine, we're going to model this after the 1950s family situation where, mom can't make a livable wage, and she takes care of the children most of the, all the time, and dad doesn't really, he's too busy making a living to worry about the nitty-gritty of taking care of children. So the courts have taken a forever amount of time to evolve out of this archaic view of how parenting has been done. Because parenting, I would venture to say that men change just as many diapers and make dinners and do all the things that our grandmothers used to be the homemaker and to do. I think that men can equally do that, and therefore, the courts are also seeing that kids need both parents. And it's kind of sad. It's actually really sad that when we go through these conflicts, a lot of times, for a lot of reasons, when we choose to separate, there are things, maybe lifestyles or behaviors that we tolerated, we didn't like, but then when we left the situation, or the situation split up, that we are absolutely against those certain behaviors. And that is where that leads into a real slippery slope of militant parenting, where we're gatekeeping. We are just, if my ex is going to have anything but rated G movies on in that home, then they can't have the child around there. I will not tolerate that. Or, if so-and-so has a new love interest and stuff like that, absolutely not. So I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a lot of it in doing the family mediation, where a parent is completely blinded and they just do not see that they're trying to control the other person's life, the other person's choices in the way that they live. And truly, a lot of times it's because they want the best for their child. They want the best influences and everything. But what I want you to also get is that children get a totally different, they get something completely different out of a situation than we would have when we were growing up. If we were growing up with even an abusive parent, or one that's under the influence of, alcohol or whatever, or that swore, or who knows, or somebody who's just financially irresponsible. I know it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating to, and you think about all the hurts and all of the damage and all of the dysfunctions that you got from those imperfect parents and stuff. So a lot of times people say, I will absolutely don't want anything to do with that other parent, or with those kind of behaviors. But you got to get that your child may, by being raised by, for example, a parent who is financially irresponsible, that's not going to automatically sentence that child to become a financially irresponsible adult. In fact, it very well might be the example that child needed to realize, I want to be completely financially responsible, because I don't want to grow up and have the lights shut out and get evicted and get my car repossessed and things like that. So you've got to understand that some influencers are not completely detrimental to the child, that just because they are. I mean, obviously certain things that are abusive and neglectful and things like that are, there's certain things that are definitely over the line. However, one thing to know that, like, even as one of the things I do is I volunteer as a guardian ad litem. And so I've learned a lot about dependency courts as well. And the one thing I do know is that in dependency court with the Children and Families departments, their protocol is all about reunification. And this is something that just recently came up with a case I had recently, where one parent was trying to terminate the rights of the other parent. The parents lived in 2 different states, and I'm not exactly sure what water went under the bridge with the relationship, but one parent was going to court to try to sever the rights of the other parent. And they were blaming it on abuse or neglect or whatever. I think that abuse was definitely one of the things that was brought up in that case. So abuse, even in cases, dependency cases, where the child has been taken out of the home and put into foster care. There's like, that parent has been tried and convicted of child abuse or neglect, and the state still, its primary goal is reunification. Maybe they work on parenting skills, maybe they do supervised visitation or whatever, but it's interesting to me that in dependency cases with foster care and all that, the primary goal is reunifying parent with child, because they know that it's important that that child develop some sort of a healthy bond with a parent who's likely has terrible parenting skills, if any at all. But the state still believes that it's important that they have a relationship with that child, that parent to that child. But yet in family court, we use all kinds of devices against each other, weapons to try to sever the parent-child contact. One of the things I call gatekeeping. Now, I've used parental alienation because parental alienation was coined back in the 80s in regards to parent behaviors. Now, the thing is there's some subtle differences, because is it truly parental alienation when the parent is truly, their heart of hearts, they're doing something to protect the child against what they know the other parent is capable of. Now, and that's why I started kind of changing to like hostile aggressive parenting, as in the negative gatekeeping behaviors that a parent would display, to target another parent. Now, and then speaking of gatekeeping behaviors, that starts really developing like the flavors of gatekeeping. A lot of times you just can't lump it up in one term called parental alienation. You can't lump it up into one term called hostile aggressive parenting. But gatekeeping behaviors can be positive. They can be, because I think a good parent does do some gatekeeping behaviors. They don't just, let the child out of the car and go across a busy street to get to the school. Their gatekeeping behaviors would be protective and nurturing to make sure that they are escorted across a busy street to get to school. But maybe some negative gatekeeping would be to prevent that child from going to school, because they don't want the influences of the things that are offered at school, the children, other children, and teachers' philosophies or whatever. That would be kind of a negative, suffocating gatekeeping behavior. But there's also the gatekeeping behaviors that parents display, which are definitely categorized in parental alienation and hostile aggressive parenting. It's where the parent is so identified with that child still being attached by the umbilical cord, such that they're a possession and that nobody has any rights over that child but them. And that's when it becomes very, very unhealthy. Here's the other thing that I noticed is in going through my own situation, I can totally identify this. Now, in regards to when if there's a professional who is maybe a psychologist or whatever, who is supposed to do a psychological evaluation, a court evaluation, they will, if they're not trained to identify parental alienation, the true insidious understanding of how an alienator really secretly, covertly targets the other parent through the child, then they could get it so wrong that targeted parent could lose custody of the child just because a psychologist or a mental health professional has no real skills. That, like, for instance, a child will naturally protect their abuser. So if you've got a parent who is secretly controlling and dominating and putting fear in that child to target the other parent, the outside untrained eye observer would look at those parents and look at this one parent that's got these children all nice and put together, yes ma'am, no ma'am. The children never get out of line in the presence of that parent, and then and the child is denigrating the other parent, accusing the other parent, telling anybody and everybody, guidance counselors, teachers, whatever, that my mommy is abusive and she's mean and she and all that. Well, if a trained mental health counselor would get that a child will protect their abuser. So if they're willingly, openly sharing to, and I'm talking about kids that are like third grade or something, elementary, maybe early middle school, if they're young enough that they just don't vocalize like fear, they have this mentality that oh my gosh, like she'll know if I say that, if she's that abusive, she'll know, so I can't say anything. So so there's kind of the psychosis of what the child is going through. Children do protect their abusers. So if they're being compliant and that one parent is all good and that one other parent is all evil, that should be a red flag to the mental health counselor to dig deeper into why they're acting the way they're acting. And then I know in my situation, by that time, I was dealing with what I didn't realize. I was dealing with post-traumatic stress. And the effects of post-traumatic stress from the untrained eye observer would be that, that maybe that person is crazy. Maybe they are irrational. Maybe, they really, a person who's going through post-traumatic stress is just doesn't even, it's just really, really hard to not live in a state of fear all the time. So yeah, it's something to consider, that don't, it's just so sad. That's the thing that's why I serve people in this group and in the other group, Kids Need Both group, because the thing is a lot of times parents who are just at their wits' end, desperate, to just have a relationship with their child, but yet they're consumed with the fear of all the what ifs. Not only the devastation of being rejected by their child that they once had an amazing relationship with, but also the fear of, oh my gosh, and are they going to get it wrong in court? Am I going to have actually abuse allegations? Am I going to get in jail? Am I going to, it just becomes this slippery slope of trauma that a parent goes through. And that's what it is that I provide. I work with individuals and I coach them through custody matters, go through divorce, who go through divorce or custody situations. I just recently helped a father who came to me just a mess. He was hopeless. It was not even on his radar that he would even have the right to have close to 50-50 custody of his child. And yet it worked out, and it worked out because having somebody to hold your hand through it that has no dog in the fight, it makes a big difference. So we are coming up on 25 minutes, and I'm really hoping that this conversation has been beneficial to you. And if there's anything, I love it that our group is growing, and just contribute, put things that are your concerns, that are the most important concerns that you think that might benefit other people in the group. Just put it out there, and we will try to talk about it throughout the week, and we'll also bring it up in the Facebook Live. I wish you a great evening, and just remember, kids need both.